of School Directors will please come to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Leonard.
Present.
Director O'Halloran.
Present.
Director Seamson.
Present.
Director Zombor.
Present.
And Chair Carr.
Here.
That's 5 present. We have a quorum.
Alrighty. The chair will now ask the secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and asks that those who do not wish to participate, please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Madam Chair, it doesn't appear that the interpreters have joined us, but if anyone needs interpretation services, they can contact the office at 414-475-8284 or governance at milwaukee.k12.wi.us, and we will try and make arrangements.
Thank you. Due to predicted weather conditions, this meeting is being conducted virtually. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. We will be taking public comment virtually tonight from those who registered in advance. Speakers are asked to remain on the platform until you are called upon. After speaking, virtual speakers may follow the rest of the meeting using the broadcast information previously mentioned. When you all are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance spelled out at milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictate that all comments should be directed to the chair. Also, any questions or requests are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, the offending parties will be removed from the platform. Anyone removed from the platform may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the Meetings, Agendas, and Minutes page of the MPS website. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1.
Item 1 is a report with possible action on family and community engagement, special education training and services for families. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the administration please present the item?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Keith Bosley, Superintendent of Schools. The item before you on this evening's agenda is a report from the Department of Family and Community Engagement regarding special education training for families. This evening, Mr. Darrell Hall, specialist from the Family and Community Engagement, will present this item. Joining him is Angela Repo from Fairview Parent, and Sherry Silla from the Wisconsin Statewide Parent Educators Initiative. Following the presentation, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Dr. Bosley. Good evening and Happy New Year, Chair Carr and members of the committee.
My name is Daryl Hall, Family and Community Engagement Specialist with the Department of Strategic Partnerships and Customer Service. This evening, we are pleased to provide you with an update on the work within the department relative to family engagement. As the district focuses on the 5 priorities for success, family engagement is critical across all 5. This report aligns with the priorities of increasing academic achievement and accountability, improving district and school culture, and strengthening communication and collaboration. This report will highlight the department's Special Education Liaison for Family program, commonly called SELF. SELF is a peer support opportunity where families receive in-depth training on special education, serve as partners with schools, and support other families. The Milwaukee Public Schools SELF program has been a unique collaboration between MPS, the Wisconsin Statewide Parent Educator Initiative, WISPE, and MPS Family since 2015. We will hear from a valued community partner and dedicated parent who has contributed to this program's success. Joining us this evening is Sherry Silla, our community partner. Sherry and her organization has supported our mission to provide enriching opportunities for our families and staff. In addition, Angela Rapple is a parent whose commitment to our program has impacted students and families. Angela is a current member of SELF. Her passion for promoting a supportive and inclusive learning environment has inspired us all. So next, I invite Ms. Rapple and Ms. Silla to share their perspective and experiences with the board. Sherry, I'll ask you to speak first.
Thank you. Thank you, Daryl Hall. And Chair Carr and members of the committee, I'm very thrilled to be here tonight to speak in regard to the SELF program. As Mr. Hall mentioned, the SELF program started as a partnership with MPS in 2015-16 with our first training of our first cohort of 5 parents. So we had 5 parents that year. The majority of the parents came from the south side of the MPS school district. Every parent trained was a parent of a child receiving special education services via an IEP. Each year after that, 5 to 15 parents were trained until there were 25 active parents in the MPS school district. Then COVID hit and the program began to wane. We are now at the point where we're rebuilding the program. Currently, there are 10 trained SELFs that support 13 schools, and those 10 special education liaisons for families were trained during last year, the 2022-23 school year, as well as one member that started in the 2015-16 school year. During this school year, we're in the process of training 8 additional parents to become SELFs, as well as we're now also training parent coordinators from the schools from which the SELFs are from. So because many of our trained SELFs represented the Southwest region of MPS, there was a strong effort that was made to recruit both parents and parent coordinators from other parts of MPS, and especially from the north side. And I will say, due to a lot of hard work, we have done a really nice job in spreading the SELF program across MPS. So now let's just talk a little bit about the training content. So the training content covers special education topics such as individualized education programs, which are IEPs, and transition planning, we emphasize the importance of helping families to engage in meetings and their child's education, as well as sharing strategies and resources that both the SELPs as well as the parent coordinators can use to support families. The training focuses on effective communication and partnership building between families and school staff. And throughout the 3 training sessions, we discuss MPS's process for resolving concerns and ensure that both the SELPs as well as the parent coordinators are all on the same page with regard to navigating the school system and specifically knowing who to talk to when questions or concerns arise. Finally, we do customize the training materials to be sure that we include any specific MPS materials, such as the MPS Parent and Student Handbook, because the policies and rules apply to all students, whether your child is in special education or not. All the policies and rules apply to all students, and it's important for ourselves and our parent coordinators to know and be familiar with the handbook and the policies in order to help families. Next slide, please. So as Mr. Hall said, I'm one of those collaborative community partners, and collaboration has been key to the success of this program. First, I'd like to talk about Monica Lopez, MPS Family and Community Engagement Associate. She was my first contact and really the fire, the match that lit the fire for this program. And so she and I began to work together during the 2015-16 school year. Funding and staff from the Wisconsin Statewide Parent Educator Initiative, which is the grant that I work for, supports this program. WISP staff are all from CISA 1, so I'm a CISA 1 employee, and that includes myself as well as one other family engagement coordinator by the name of Stephanie Adrahan. Our initial efforts in the SELF program involved a focus on recruiting and training parents of a child with an IEP. We discovered that there were some challenges with trained liaisons being able to collaborate with their school's parent coordinators. Oftentimes, SELPs would report that school personnel didn't understand or recognize the SELF or the SELF role. So in order to address this issue, the SELF training was opened up to parent coordinators starting in the 2022-23 school year. Parent coordinators are invited to attend with a parent who they would like to work with as a SELF in their school. And so now we are actually building the capacity for both parent and parent coordinator to support families who have a child with an IEP in their school. And again, this is our second year of this joint training for parents and parent coordinators. And we hope to see improved collaboration between the SELF and the PC so that parents can be more engaged in their child's education. Next slide, please. So now talking about that support, that sustainability, and that mentoring. So the collaboration between MPS and WISP is what has kept the SELF program going and growing. So just to let you know, school districts across the state have liaisons similar to the SELF program. Liaisons are paid a stipend for their role in service to the district. MPS has chosen to pay the liaisons, special education liaisons for families, a stipend for their completion of the 3-day training program. I'd like to thank Mr. Travis Pinter, Senior Director of Specialized Services, for his support of this training stipend that is paid for with ESSER funds, both last school year and this school year. Parent coordinators also receive compensation for their attendance at each training session. This is supported through the Strategic Partnerships and Customer Service Department, and I'd like to thank Mr. Hall and Ms. Stone, who have been instrumental in supporting this parent coordinator compensation. The WISPE grant, that's my grant, provides the trainers and the training materials for all of the self-program materials and training. And then WISPE, my grant, and MPS share the cost of food, beverages, etc. for each session. And then finally, what has been really important and key and critical is that Ms. Stone, Mr. Hall, and then Monica Lopez have all attended our training sessions as well. So from the standpoint of parents and parent coordinators feeling supported by MPS, I think it's incredibly powerful to have administrators and other staff there to support this. And then finally, there are monthly check-ins. And so this is really important piece that parents feel supported and are mentored and are coached as they continue to support families within their schools. And so this ongoing support and mentoring for the MPS selves has been a collaborative effort again with MPS staff and WISPE collaborating for that support. So Monica Lopez, FACE Associate, would coordinate communication with all the selves and facilitates that monthly check-in at check-in meetings. As Monica has retired as of last week, we will miss her presence with the self program and we look forward to working with her replacement. But she really has been instrumental in leading this work since the inception of the program. Specialized services staff also join these monthly check-ins to be available to answer questions and provide information and updates to our liaisons. This is really important for our liaisons to actually hear from school staff and have accurate information to share with their schools and families. I would like to extend my appreciation to specialized services staff members, Amy Kowalski, Barbara Barnes, and Cheryl Mosley. And in previous years, Ms. Mims Howell attended and supported the self monthly meetings as well. So that type of support is incredibly key and critical for our liaisons to have accurate information and resources to share with families, because I look at them as being cheerleaders for the school district. And then finally, WISPE staff collaborated with Monica to plan and help and plan those monthly check-ins. WISPE staff, we also provide updates and information from the Department of Public Instruction and other family support organizations. So we provide that support from external sources to build that capacity of our liaisons in MPS. And it really is a strength of the SELF program to have multiple departments within MPS working together to support that SELF program. It really is a model that other school districts can learn from, as it exemplifies the importance of shared responsibility. Next slide. And now I'd like to introduce Angela Rappel.
Thank you, Sherry. Chair Carr, members of the committee, I'm honored to be here today to talk about the impact of this SELF program in the school community. I was invited by my parent coordinator, Andy Killiman, back in the day at Fairview. And as a parent of a student with Down syndrome, I felt very confused about the IEP process. And so just going through the training and learning all of these things was incredibly important for me. And I really felt empowered. I felt like I had the knowledge to be an equal partner at those meetings. And so when I was offered this opportunity to help other families do the same thing, I took it. And it's been several years. Sherry and Monica Lopez have really helped me with all my questions. Amy Kowalski with Specialized Services as well has been instrumental in helping myself and other parents. So the IEP process is a little bit harrowing when you first get into it. And recently there was some federal legislation that came out that the product of that was a group of worksheets that walk parents through the process and different questions that they can ask. It's called the Andrew F. worksheets. And it basically, this legislation guarantees free and appropriate education for all students. And these worksheets have been instrumental in helping several of the families that have been sent my way, just in being able to understand how they can get the best education possible for their child. And really, during that process, the parent starts to feel like an equal partner at the table. And you start to think about the child being included at the table as early as possible. And it really grows trust between the team members. That's the principal, the special education teacher, the regular classroom teacher, if you're in a bridging curriculum. And so that is very important to families, to not feel lost, to feel connected, to feel supported when they're making that plan for their child's education. I can't tell you how many times I've heard parents, they call me and they're so frustrated. And the number one thing that I do really is listen first. And sometimes parents just need to talk about how frustrated they are. And I'm able to help them problem solve. And I have the knowledge because of my training to be able to tell them, don't call the superintendent. You don't need to call DPI. You can, here's how you do it. And we're trained very specifically to listen and to have the knowledge to pass on and resources to make parents feel reassured. So when it comes to MPS, we have this bridging curriculum where my student, for example, is in the general education classroom, and that is very important to me. And that level of inclusion is very important to me and to many other parents. And so I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate the information that we've received in detail from Amy Kowalski and Specialized Services regarding that type of curriculum and how it is supposed to play out. And this training has been instrumental in changing the way that my school, Fairview, does their bridging. It's much better the last 2 years since, post-pandemic. There's a lot of work that went into it, and I'm very grateful for that, and all the other parents as well. Some of the other unique programming that we have in MPS is the School to Work transitioning program. That is something that I just learned about recently that is super cool, and I'm looking forward to my 5th grader doing that eventually as he gets older. And then adaptive athletics. I will brag and say that my son has participated in that, and currently he is a yellow belt in Taekwondo with Milwaukee Rec. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge a huge thank you to Director Herndon, Director Leonard, Jennifer Mims Howell, Amy Kowalski at Specialized Services, and Cheryl Mosley because they helped us to fine-tune the progress reports for children who were getting those. They weren't detailed, and they listened to the parents that brought that to the table, and they changed it, and they did it within a school year, and it was amazing. And I had, parents coming to me in tears saying, "This is wonderful, and please, thank you for listening to us and making a success out of that situation." So, if I could have a goal for this program, I know it's growing again, and I'm really thankful for that. I don't know what we need to do, but I would love to see a self at every school. If every school had one parent who was dedicated to sharing this information and being trained to share this information, that would be awesome. I'd also like to see administration invite parents to form a special education council. So just like we have a district advisory council, I would like for administration to start the ball rolling and invite special education parents to have a separate council. And with that, that's my spiel. So thank you so much, Director Carr and members of the committee, for letting me speak about this today. I love what I do, and I'll do it as long as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry and Angela, for that presentation. So this concludes our presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any committee members who wish to make comments? Director Leonard?
Thank you. First of all, say hi to Charlie for me. Angela, he's always a pleasure to talk with. I'm glad that you gave me a couple of goals, because I was about to ask you, what do you need from us? What do you want to see different in the program? And we have talked before about this, so I don't know if I'm asking, Angela and the people from South. I'm also asking Ms. Mims Powell, what are some things that we can do to actually get those things in action? Because I do believe we need a self at every school. There's just no question about that. That's something that's worth working for. And then I'll let you answer. Thank you.
Administration?
Good evening, Chair Carr, members of the committee, and Director Leonard, Jennifer Mims Howell, Chief Academic Officer. One of the things that we can work on as a team, along with Christy Stone and Daryl Hall, along with Travis Pinter and Amy, is to look at the parent coordinators and their connection to the parents of students with disabilities. If there's a parent that's been an advocate, if there's a parent that shows some interest in making sure that they can support other families while still teaching them in the same process, we can look at something like that. We also can continue to train our parent coordinators, giving them opportunities to learn more about the special education progress, other support families, and then we can see what our budget looks like for years to come and make sure that we have self-support for our schools.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Director Leonard? Okay. Director Simpson?
Thank you. Yeah, so Director Leonard, that was one of the questions I had, was sort of like, based on this report, getting more advocates in every school. Related to that, I just had a question about how families or parents were to find out about the program, how they would even know, how they would become aware of the possible training that they might be able to participate in, just how that information is passed along.
Administration?
Chair Carr, members of the committee, Daryl Hall, Family and Community Engagement Specialist. One of our goals also, I think Angela mentioned it, was to create outreach, better marketing for the SELF program. What we did last year was for the first time, include the parent coordinator holistically with the training and an opportunity to learn about special education as well as to learn about the SELF program. This year, we are planning on, in our parent coordinator playbook, we added information about the SELF and the role of the role of the parent coordinator in terms of providing information to the families about SELF. So we want to make sure that the parent coordinators are fully equipped with the information to share out to their family to recruit. And I think the most important tool is the word of mouth from the current SELF member to share the information with their school population.
Director
Just one more question. So the idea of a special education parent council was raised. I think that's actually like a wonderful suggestion, and I'm hoping that we can start looking into something like that, because I think that would be extremely beneficial, especially given the high rate of special education families we have in our district. So just encourage some follow through with that request.
Director O'Halloran.
Thank you, Chair Carr. I wanted to just follow up on the question around growing it to every school, and administration said, we can look at the budget. Can you give us like an estimate of, obviously I would love to grow it to every school right now, but can we set some sort of like, we think it would be sustainable to maybe onboard 5 or 10 schools, and then what the budget, just to have an actual plan to look at for the board to consider some more specifics around that. And it would be nice to see that before May so that we can take a look at it for the upcoming year. Is that something that administration you would be able to provide to us? I guess we're looking at, in the next couple months.
Administration.
Chair Carr and members of the committee, Christy Stone, Director of Strategic Partnerships and Customer Service. Yes, we would be able to come up with a more comprehensive budget and propose that to the board, and propose some potential options to be able to expand the program. Right now, we're looking at about $300 for schools, so include for food and small marketing, things like that, incentives for parents to be able to attend. So I think just a rough estimate, we're probably looking at about $45,000 to $50,000 to be able to fully expand it how we would like, but we will do some additional research and get that back to you, and hopefully be able to provide some additional schools for the upcoming school year.
Thank you. Director O'Halloran, any follow-up?
No, I would look forward to that plan around the Special Education Council. Then just my other question is, do you need the board to take action to kick that off, or is that something that the administration feels like currently you all have the resources that you need if you were to convene something with, reasonable goals, maybe just start once a quarter or something? Do you need anything from the board to start that?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, Director O'Halloran, members of the committee, Jennifer Msao, Chief Academic Officer. I've worked with Ms. Rappel in the past on having a special education council. We will continue to work with Ms. Stone so that it is a branch of our DAC committees, making sure that all parents are aware while making our parents of students with disabilities more active, having an active role in it. So we will continue to work on that as part of the DAC.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Director Zambor.
Thank you, Chair Carr. Yeah, I was going to echo what other board members, just the support for the Special Education Parent Council. I guess a question, if it's included in the DAC, the Multilingual Advisory Council, that's separate from the DAC, correct? And so I guess I'm just wondering the pros and cons of having it be part of DAC or be something separate and autonomous from DAC. I don't know if anyone has thoughts about the difference between both models, and maybe that's a conversation we can continue to have.
Administration.
Chair Carr, Director Zomber, members of the committee, Jennifer Mims Howe, Chief Academic Officer. I believe you are mentioning, you're speaking of our DMAC committee, our District Multilingual Advisory Council. That also began as a subset of DAC. And so as speaking about the Special Education Committee for Families, or for parents rather, that also will be a subcommittee of DAC. DMAC, as we call it, our District Multilingual Multicultural Advisory Council, was a spinoff as well. It became its own council simply because of the size of it. In looking at DAC and having the special education be a small subcommittee, it too could grow into that. So we could just start with getting more parents involved in it. Because with our multilingual council, we have families that have students who don't even attend our immersion schools. And so we know that offering it and recruiting from a wide variety of families is important. So staying with the DAC for now will probably be our best bet until it grows really big, and then we can have our own committee.
Okay. Any follow-up, Director Zomber?
Thank you, Chair Carr. I guess one other follow-up is maybe just more of an invitation, as Ms. Rappel, as you're doing this really important work, if you find that any of the policies around IP, special education, can be strengthened, if you encounter anything, just feel free to share that with administration and the board, because those, they're a living document and there's always ways we can improve.
Thank you. Any other members of the committee? Ready? I'd like to pass the gavel. And I want to say thank you to the leaders of the program for their partnership and your efforts to spark awareness about the SELF program. I want to go back to question regarding outreach efforts. How are you reaching out to families that may not be digitally connected?
Administration.
Chair Carr, members of the committee, Daryl Hall, Family and Community Engagement Specialist. Using the number one strategy that we have to reach out to families, that is the parent coordinators in every school. Parent coordinators have newsletters. We worked on creating a website. We will be working on updating the website, so the webpage that we have here at the district. We want to make sure that there's communication and information that's available for the parent coordinators to share it out with the family. Lastly, I want to say that in March, we have the Celebrating Abilities Forum. That forum will be taking place on the north side right now. It's targeted for Marshall High School, and that's targeting families on the northwest side. As Sherry mentioned earlier, that there's been a lot of connections with families on the south side. So we're working on building that relationship with parents on the north side. And Celebrating Ability is another avenue for us to accomplish that and reaching out, that providing information about the services in the program that's available for families who have students with special education needs.
Mr. Carr, do you want to have anything else? No?
Thank you. I'll take the gavel back.
You got it.
All righty. And do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments, Madam Secretary?
We had no speaker requests for this item, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right. Next item, please.
The next item is item 2, an update with possible action on enhancing educational communities and school climate. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Will the administration please present the item?
And members of the committee, this evening we bring to you an update on enhancing educational communities and school climate. This report will focus on the district's proactive strategies used to support children and school teams through a variety of these interventions. To present this item, I have with me Mr. John Jackman, District Discipline Manager, and he will be joined by Jason Brazil, the principal of Obama High School. Following the presentation, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. John, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Posley, Director Carr, and members of the committee. John Jagman, District Discipline Manager. We are also joined by Jason Brazil, Principal of Barack Obama School of Career and Tech Ed, who will be providing some updates on the work they are doing at their school. As always, we are looking at our 5 priorities for success. The work we are talking about here today is specifically looking at how we are strengthening our communication and collaboration while ensuring fiscal responsibility. We're looking at how we are developing our staff to improve district and school culture to ultimately improve academic achievement and accountability across the district. For this school year, we have been focused on our 4 pathways that we are utilizing: PBIS tiered interventions, mental wellness, anti-racism and anti-bias, and restorative practices. Again, those are the 4 pathways that are aligned within the DIP and the SIP, and how those teams are aligning their work, working together to support schools. Each school has teams of PBIS Tier 1, the Building Intervention Team, or BIT, and student discipline committees that are focused on this work. We are focusing on proactive approaches, systems, and strategies to create that positive school climate that increases the academic outcomes. First, from PBIS tiered interventions, looking at updates for the last 2 months, we continually have monthly meetings at all MPS schools, and they enter their minutes into their school improvement plan right in a Google Drive for all staff and all schools to access and continue to update. There was professional development, including strategies to increase engagement and connect with families, specifically focusing on a classroom management strategy on increasing student engagement in the curriculum to create that positive climate. They presented an overview for Milwaukee Recreation of PBIS as a tiered system of support for Milwaukee Recreation staff members. A PBIS walkthrough rubric was created and aligned with the school improvement plan for PBIS coaches to go through with school leaders and conduct walkthroughs to identify areas of growth and areas of success. Within mental wellness, this is the work being conducted out of the Violence Prevention Program. They are offering the Classroom Organization and Management Program, or COMP. That is a national professional development that we have trained facilitators, and that is a 3-day course looking at classroom management strategies for staff members. Focusing on increasing fidelity of second step and supporting implementation of a comprehensive mental wellness activities. Continued implementation of the RISE grant, or Resilience in School Environments. There are 6 schools that are working with that grant to increase implementation of mental health supports. And monthly, principals are engaging with compassion resiliency modules as part of their PLI, or Principal Leadership Institute. Updates with anti-racism and anti-bias. There were 3 district models that are focused on documentation of behaviors, behavioral definitions, ensuring that all staff members understand the differences in behaviors, different ways to document, and different ways to support behaviors by different behavioral definitions. We are focusing on the best practices regarding creation of authentic relationships with students of color, looking at what that looks like and how that can address our disproportionality. We also sent out and provided resources and best practices on a classroom management strategy of a recovery area, which is an area within the academic instructional space where students maybe are struggling with their emotions or struggling with regulation, can go for a few moments, do a mindful breath, work with a fidget spinner, maybe draw real quickly, and kind of get themselves back into an academic space, and then they join the classroom activities. And then student discipline committees at the 30 middle and high schools are continuing to work on their action plans that are created by students and are being monitored through Student Voice, culminating at our April Student Leadership Summit later this year. We are also continuing with our implementation of courageous conversations about race. In November, Milwaukee Public Schools was recognized by Courageous Conversations About Race as the Grace Lee Boggs Courageous Conversation About Race Partnership Award winner. Every year they identify school districts that is engaging in this work and amping up the work and really making it district-wide. And Milwaukee Public Schools was recognized in this last November. We have held 130 total sessions since March 1st, 2021, when our 3-year plan started. We have had over 9,200 total staff members attend these sessions. We are looking at meeting our goal in March. We have a few more remaining sessions and just a handful of staff left to train, and we will meet that goal of March 1st, all staff members having attended that session. And then updates from restorative practices. They created and developed and started to facilitate a one-day seminar called Racial Justice and Equity, a deep dive into restorative practices. This actually takes a lot of the work learned at the Courageous Conversations About Race one-day seminar and uses those protocols within the restorative practice circle to look at racial justice, look at individual staff members' own journey in that work, again, using some of those same protocols. They are creating an additional training series. They're looking at this being one of 4 in a new series they're creating. And they have held data discussions and collaborations with their partnership schools. Those partnership schools have 20+ hours of in-school coaching from a restorative practices coach, and they are focusing on mid-year data discussions and collaborations. Next steps, we are looking at completion of phase 1 of Courageous Conversations About Race. That is when all staff members will have attended by March 1st, 2024. We are having an additional seminar of Beyond Diversity. That is the Courageous Conversations About Race 2-day seminar. It's kind of the expansion of that 1-day seminar. We are now trained to do that internally, so we are hosting a seminar of that in February. Violence Prevention has a historical trauma PD series that looks at some of the history of trauma in the country and in Milwaukee specifically, looking at how that still plays itself out in the lives of our students and families and communities to this day. And continued sessions of trauma-sensitive practices and compassion resilience for school administrators on a monthly basis at PLI. I will now turn it over to Jason Brazil, who will talk about some of the work being conducted at Obama SCTE.
Good evening, Chair Carr, members of the board. My name is Jason Brazil. I am the proud principal at Barack Obama SCTE. It is my 2nd year here at Barack Obama, and during my first year there, we took some time over the summer to just really evaluate different ways that we can make improvements in our school culture and climate from last year to this year. And just with the help of the great team and school community, we've been able to take some really great steps and move in the right direction. So just here to share that with you. We are a school of enrollment of 650 students, 93% Black, 3% Hispanic, 0.5% white and other races. And our suspensions are down 96 year to date. So over the summer, we took some time to identify areas of growth. And as as what happens normally, there's a lot of areas of growth, but we really focus on things that we could affect right away. So some of those things being clear expectations, student accountability, student recognition and celebration, engagement, consistency, building relationships, parent communication, and improving our overall school culture and climate. So one thing we did was increase our city year partnership from last year and expanded that to our 9th grade program. Our K-8 students began moving up grade levels with their teachers, which really helped them build those relationships with their teachers. Our school can be sometimes transient. We get a lot of new students, it being a K-12 building. So we began the intake process for those new students to make sure that we know those students and Barack Obama feels like home. Communication with parents regarding our attendance, school improvement plan action steps, and making sure that we communicate those. And then through ESSER and some other support, we were able to make some building improvements and get a lot of student gear and student swag so students could be proud and show off that they are scholars at Barack Obama. So some of the other things we dove into are also just making sure we communicate our expectations and assemblies with students. And also we created a brand new student handbook that highlights those expectations. Student accountability through phone calls home when students are late. So in our high school program, a lot of our students would kind of maybe come late or hang out in the community. And so in order them, for us to hold them accountable when they would come late unexcused, we would make phone calls home so the parents knew that students were coming late, and that really cut down on that a lot. We increase our student recognition and celebrations. So monthly and weekly, we are recognizing students for improvements and making gains. We've increased our student engagement with more clubs, more organizations in our school, and we've increased our field trips and experience opportunities for kids. So there's really a purpose and a reason for them to feel like they should come to school every day. And also just being consistent in our communication with our staff, our students, our recognition, and our consequences, so that staff knows every day we're going to come share the same message every day. We're going to recognize our students, and we're also going to show hold our students accountable every day. And through some of these steps, we've been able to increase our attendance by 6% year to date. Our suspension rate is down almost 12%, and students are really happy to show up at Barack Obama every day.
Chair Carr, members of the committee, that concludes our presentation. We're now open to any questions or comments.
Thank you. Are there any committee members who wish to make comments or ask questions? Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, you do have 2 committee members that wish to speak, and then we do have some individuals on the platform that had registered as well.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Director O'Halloran?
My question was going to be if we had any public testimony.
Director Leonard?
Well, that was one question. I was thinking, but I guess I want to ask sort of a tough question. And what do you find to be the biggest impediments for getting schools to get to that restorative justice piece, to get to where we want our culture to be changed from a district-wide standpoint? I know when I look at this item, I always am wondering, because when I go into different buildings, there's a different kind of culture in every single building. Some are rocking it. They're really making changes and things are happening. And there's others where that's not the case. And I'm not going to point out buildings. I don't do that. But I'm just curious, from administration's viewpoint, what are some of the areas that really need the most work, cause us the most dysfunction?
Administration?
Sure. Director Carr and Director Leonard, I believe it was. I think one of the biggest impediments may be just consistency and buy-in. A lot of times you have to make things really tangible for students and staff to buy in, and that only means putting that forward for them, but also demonstrating, engaging in that practice. And sometimes that can look like work. And not to say that, we're not here for the work, but, it takes people willing to put in that work. And not to say, we can definitely make that happen. But, again, it's a labor of love.
Director Leonard?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brazil. Appreciate that response. Then also, if there's a possibility, your SDC meetings, are they different at every school, or are there like sections of schools? I'd like to actually be present at one of those meetings.
Administration?
Chair Carr, members of the committee, yeah, the time and the variance that could vary by school, but we could connect to what a specific school you want to go to, Director Leonard, but it's all within the school day and it kind of just fits whatever their schedule might be.
Thank you.
All right, Director Zambor?
Thank you, Chair Carr. Thanks for the update, Mr. Brazil. I know you said that you had expanded City Year this year. Do you know roughly how many members you have this year?
Sure, we have about I'm sorry, Director Carr, members of the board and directors number. We have about 7 city year members on our team this year. Last year, they only supported our K-8 program. With the help of one of my assistant principals, Mr. Gary, we built a freshman bridge program and expanded their support to support our freshman students as well.
That's great. Thank you.
All righty. Director Stevenson?
Thank you, Chair Carr. Yeah, I love the idea of an intake meeting. In the school I taught in, that was something that we had always talked about doing. And I was just wondering who usually is present for the intake meetings, who kind of runs them, and are parents invited to attend as well?
Director Carr and Director Simpson. Those meetings are either held by our counselors or someone off of our administrative staff. Often parents do come in with students those first days, so we often encourage them to join those meetings so they can hear the messages, hear the and also just kind of feel connected to the information that we're giving that student. So, during those meetings, we talk about some of our school expectations. We talk about, general things from our handbook to our homework assignment taker, but also we ask questions of the students to get to know them a little bit better, ask where they came from, what kinds of things are they into, and what do they want out of their experience at Barack Obama. So it's really more about the students' experience than ours.
That's great. It's a wonderful idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more members of the committee who wish to make comments or ask questions? I don't see any. All right, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, we did have some members of the public that registered to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you'd like me to go ahead and call the first
Yes.
name.
Thank you.
Okay. When you're called upon to speak, please say your name, spell your last name, and then give your comments. The first speaker is Larry Hoffman. Larry Hoffman.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm Larry Hoffman, Hoffman.
We hear you.
Good. Speaking as a member of the MICA Education Task Force. So many steps are being taken to try to resolve the differences between how our African American and our other students are treated. It's extremely hard to know which activities are having a real positive effect and which ones are just window dressing. I strongly suggest that you ask administration to carry out 4 projects. Number 1 is assessment of the 3-year staff development in courageous conversations about race. In March, it will be summed up in this very same agenda item. Do not settle at that time for a bland, happy PowerPoint with lots of numbers. The program is complex and digs deep, so the evaluation needs to be deep. What you should want to know is this: what has changed? In the minds and the practices of the teachers and the administrators, ask every employee what they've absorbed from the training and what they're doing differently now. Ask what they disagree with and what didn't make sense to them. Let their responses guide what you'll do in the next phase. Project number 2, find out what's going on in other districts that are further along in achieving racial equity. Number 3, student voice. What happened to all the ideas that were expressed in student committees and conferences on racial equity? Have they ever been analyzed, distributed, and discussed further? Also, I strongly suspect that not enough middle and high school kids have been engaged in this discussion. Do they feel discipline is meted out fairly? Do they feel that their teachers understand their issues? And why not? And number 4 is better communication among offices. I'm impressed by the thoughtful process that the restorative practice folks seem to be doing. But I'll bet there are other offices who are rowing their own boats up the same river, all trying separately to get to racial equity, positive climate, and restorative culture. Can someone please get them together to communicate and row together so they all get there sooner? Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kelly Lempa. Please say your name, spell your last name, and give your comment.
Kelly Lempa, Lempa. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Carr and directors of the board. I'm a member of MICA ETF and ARWE. I want to urge the board today to request that MPS leadership create a robust phase 2 plan for continuing the work of courageous conversations about race and other anti-racist and anti-bias trainings and activities district-wide. We are less than 1 week away from an important federal holiday, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Dr. King was a leader in the civil rights movement, which protested racial discrimination in federal and state laws. Today, MPS needs leaders to continue to protest and work against racial discrimination occurring systemically in our own district. Our data, unfortunately, continues to show large discrepancies for Black students in discipline. At this time of year, when we reflect on Dr. King's legacy, let us do our part in honoring his work and let us continue that work here in MPS. From the January 2024 report presented today by Mr. Jagaman, I understood that the 3-year plan to have all staff members attend the 1-day seminar on courageous conversations about race will be completed by March 1st of this year. What is the plan to continue and deepen this work after the district has completed this 3-year plan? I saw and heard general next steps from today's presentation and in the report, but I don't see a robust plan for continuing CCAR work moving forward. While I commend the district for the work completed these past 3 years, if we truly want to create a difference in discipline discrepancies in our district, this work will need to continue. I urge the board to request of district leadership a creation of a robust phase 2 plan for continued district-wide trainings and courageous conversations about race and other anti-racist and anti-bias training. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Angela Lucas Foley. Please state your name, spell your last name, and give your testimony.
Angela Lucas Foley, Lucas Foley.
Thank you.
Good evening, Director Carr, members of the committee, and administration. I come to you this evening as a white educator, a parent of MPS students, and a proud member of aspiring anti-racist white educators. Popular and common sense know the importance of culture and climate in buildings. As we face a significant financial cliff, declining enrollment year over year, I have questions for the board directors based on our CCAR compass. Courageous Conversations About Race emphasizes the use of the compass, and harnessing this, school board directors, I ask you, what do you believe as far as policies should be in place to make our school climate what it needs to be? What do you think your role as school board directors is in creating school climate worthy of our students across our district? What do you feel about this topic, especially for Black and Brown students and families? I yield the next 32 seconds for quiet reflection from you as school board director. What do you believe? What do you think? What do you feel? And how will you act?
Madam Chair, while we appreciate the speaker yielding her time, we can't have silence on the air. So we did have one other member of the public register to speak, Michelle Hilbert, who does not appear to be on the platform. So that completes public comment, and you're back to committee.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is you have Director O'Halloran?
I'm sorry. Director O'Halloran, go ahead.
Thank you. I did want to follow up, and we did receive one piece of written testimony. One of the questions in that written testimony was about, if the district is collecting any qualitative data or anything related to the training. I think it was on slide 8 from the presentation around the courageous conversations. Are we collecting any data about staff's understanding or feelings or suggestions on how to improve these trainings in the future?
Administration?
Chair Carr, members of the committee, John Jagman, District Discipline Manager. So yes, at the conclusion of the seminar, there is an exit survey that just asks, check for understanding was part of it, just do they understand the concepts brought forth? And then there's questions around next steps for themselves, next steps for their role within Milwaukee Public Schools. We also have an annual discipline survey that we've been doing for the last 5 years. And last year, we integrated a few questions around implementation of the protocols. We were going to do even more of that this year, knowing that we will have all staff members engaged in that and have that understanding. So we will have that more as a question of you've trained and now you've been back in your building for a few months. What are your next steps? But we do have folks as they leave the seminar virtually leave feedback and check for understanding.
Would it, Madam Chair, may I have one follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. When we, to your point around this will conclude the 3-year cycle in March, whenever you bring that back, whether it's March or then April or May, would it be possible to just bring some of those, the trends or any sort of, ideas that bubbled up that the board might find interesting or informative as we consider next steps? So not just on that slide where you say like, yes, we finally did it and thank you for doing all of that. Could you also incorporate some of that feedback, please?
Chair Carr, members of the committee, John Jagman. Yeah, so we've already started that work. We have like number of staff that have gotten questions right. We pulled some kind of testimonials, but then we are also going to be working with the district research, because then there are softwares that can input the number of times words appear and stuff like that, because we're going to have 9,000 responses. So some of that's a little bit more difficult, but we have started the work of just percentage of staff that indicated they increased their knowledge, percentage of staff that have said this and that, but then we can have more of that for sure.
Thank you. I do want to pass the gavel quickly. Sorry.
Noted.
So one of the speakers called in, I believe, Larry Hoffman, and he brought up some very valid points, asked some really critical questions and made some suggestions. I'd like for that to be sent to the administration so that we can receive responses, and so that we can share our feedback as it pertains to some of the suggestions that were made. And I would like for that to be done by the next time we present. Is that March? All right. Okay. Madam Secretary, next item.
The next item is item 3, a report with possible action on the Nita M. Lowy 21st Century Community Learning Center Evaluation Report. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the administration please present the item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, the item before you on this evening's agenda is a summary of the 21st Century CLC Evaluation Report from 2020 to 2021 school year. To present this item, we have Mr. Leighton Cooper, the coordinator with the Department of Recreation, accompanied by Grant Sims, research evaluation scientist with Wisconsin Center for Education Research, to summarize this report. Following the presentation, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Leighton.
Good evening, Chair Carr, members of the committee. Leighton Cooper, Recreation Coordinator, Milwaukee Public Schools Before and After School Programs. I am joined today virtually by Mr. Grant Sim from the Wisconsin Center for Education Research, who will provide you with the process for creating this report, as well as recommendations identified as a part of this process. As we look at the district's 5 priorities for success, we would like to inform you that the 21st Century Community Learning Center program is fully aligned with each of the priorities. The report that has been shared with you specifically focuses on increasing academic achievement and accountability, ensuring fiscal responsibility and transparency, as well as strengthening communication and collaboration. The 21st Century Community Learning Center program provides enrichment opportunities, academic enrichment opportunities, social emotional supports, recreation enrichment, and exposure to the arts and leadership for students during non-school hours. Milwaukee Public Schools currently serves as the largest provider of 21st Century Community Learning Centers in the state of Wisconsin, with approximately 40 school-based programs located throughout the city. These programs are operated by local youth servicing organizations that equally share in the mission of supporting and developing youth. Key goals of the 21st Century Community Learning Center program are to strengthen student academic outcomes in core areas such as math and reading, support families in the education and development of their youth, and expand the minds of young people by providing memorable experiences in a safe, supportive environment. We are here tonight to provide you with an overview of the 2020-2021 Annual Evaluation Report. This report was created as a collaborative effort between Milwaukee Public Schools before and after school team and representatives from the Wisconsin Center for Education Research. The 21st Century Community Learning Center program requires that school districts and fund recipients provide and publish an annual report to the public. The purpose of the evaluation report is to assess program impact on students and families, improve practices and services, adapt targets to improve the program, to inform the implementation of high quality programming, and last but not least, to ensure accountability towards grant program requirements. Programs must publish an annual evaluation report that demonstrates progress towards these objectives and goals. The Milwaukee Public Schools 21st Century CLC programs meet this requirement by providing this annual evaluation report on the MilwaukeeRecreation.net website. We share this information with our community-based organizations who also publish and share this report via their stakeholder networks. And last but not least, this is our first presentation to the PACE committee within the Milwaukee Board of School Directors. I would now like to take this moment to introduce Mr. Grant Sim from the Wisconsin Center for Education Research, who will provide you with the methodology as well as recommendations that came as a part of this process.
Chair Carr, members of the committee, Grant Sim, Research and Evaluation Scientist. I want to start by thanking you for your time this evening to present results from our external evaluation of the Community Learning Centers, or CLC, program during its operation in the 2020-21 school year. As mentioned, I'm Grant Sim. I'm a Research and Evaluation Scientist at the Wisconsin Center for Education Research at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I, along with my colleague, Dr. Bradley Carl, led the evaluation of the program for this year in collaboration with Mr. Leighton Cooper and staff at the program. The evaluation of the 2020-21 CLC program followed guidelines set forth by DPI for all CLC grantees statewide. It included analysis both across all sites within the district, as well as analysis at the site level. Key areas that were examined by the evaluation include the number of students served by the program throughout the year, how often students attended CLC, the demographics of students served by the program, and progress on 4 state CLC goals. Next slide, please. The 4 state CLC goals were developed by DPI as part of the overall Wisconsin CLC program. These goals include 1, provide a stable, safe, and supportive environment to meet the needs of the target population. 2, challenge youth as learners. 3, support the development of other skills necessary for student success. And 4, engage families in support of student learning. As part of the program, each site is required to develop up to 4 more specific local goals related to each of these 4 state goals. Each local goal includes some local goal text around what they're trying to achieve, an expected outcome related to that goal, and the intended data source for that goal. These goals are established by program staff in collaboration with the schools they work with to both meet the needs of the students they serve and fit within their school's culture. Next slide, please. To examine participation, demographics, and then measure attainment on those local goals developed by each site, the evaluation made use of several data sources, including the CLC site level goals developed, the CLC attendance and participation in select activities, student and family surveys administered by CLC sites, student demographics, student attendance, disciplinary records from the day school, and assessment results. It's important to note at this point that the evaluation covered the 2020-21 school year, which led to several limitations for data and the evaluation overall. As you know, due to COVID, most MPS sites were virtual for most of 2020-21. Student CLC participation decreased due to virtual instruction, reduced capacity due to health department guidelines, and a lack of district-provided transportation during this year. Further, several adjustments were necessary for calculating local goal attainment due to decreased data availability. For instance, one major limitation was that the STAR assessment was not administered during 2020-21. For State Goal 2, challenging youth as learners, most sites set local goals related to academic growth or closing gaps on the STAR assessment. As a result, we were not able to examine goals relying on STAR data for goals making use of those assessments. Another example of data limitation is State Goal 4, engaging families in support of student learning, where local goals were related to family event attendance. MPS schools were closed to the public, including families, for most of 2020-21, and sites were not permitted to hold in-person family events or gatherings. As a result, the evaluation was not able to examine local goal attainment for this state goal. Next slide, please. Moving on to our findings from the 2020-21 school year. The total number of sites that operated was 35 throughout the district, providing 10 to 15 hours each week of activities when MPS was in session. Selected CLC sites provided all-day in-person support to students in need of virtual learning support. These sites also provided breakfast, lunch, and dinner. In terms of participation in the program, CLC sites served nearly 1,800 students over the course of the year. The average student attended CLC 42 days, and the average number of students served per site was 30. It's important to note that students attending MPS CLC sites in 2020-21 represented around 18% of the approximately 10,000 total students served by all CLC sites statewide. And as a point of comparison to illustrate the impact of COVID on CLC attendance, in 2018-19, the most recent year without any COVID interference, more than 6,000 students attended MPS CLC sites. A distribution of the attendance is shown on the right, with attendance broken out into 4 bands. The percentage of students attending 1 to 29 days, the percentage of students attending 30 to 59 days, 60 to 89 days, and 90 or more days. Even with the virtual and learning environment and COVID, 44% of students attended CLC for 30 or more days. Next slide, please. We also examined student demographics. As seen, the program served students who needed care during this time period, as the majority of these students were at the elementary level. As seen from the current slide, the program served approximately between 160 and 230 students in each of the elementary grades, kindergarten through 5th, and approximately 60 to 110 students in each grade, 6th through 12th. I'll also note that the program provided equitable access to students during this time period, as demographic composition of students attending CLC resembled that of MPS students overall. Next slide, please. Next, we show some results related to the progress towards objectives and the examination of local goal attainment. To put these results into the proper context, it is important to point out again that data availability was a large limitation for this year in the calculation of local goal attainment, with the evaluation being unable to calculate results for the majority of local goals set. As a result, these findings should be interpreted with caution and may not be as representative of the performance of the program as would be the case if the evaluation had data for all local goals. With that caveat in mind, and with the limitations of COVID and virtual learning environment, we still saw that sites met over half of the local goals related to State Goal 1 and over 40% of goals related to State Goal 2. For State Goal 3, sites met 8% of their local goals, and as noted previously, we were not able to ascertain results for State Goal 4. Overall, this led to sites meeting approximately 40% of all local goals for 2020-21. Next slide, please. Finally, the evaluation provided some recommendations for program improvement efforts. The major recommendation was to continue to improve local goal setting by having better process for reviewing site level goals. This process would ensure that goals are regularly attainable and have clearly identified and available data sources that can be easily collected by sites and shared with the district and evaluation. With more goals that are able to be examined, the evaluation will have more reliable results to provide appropriate feedback to the program for improvement. We are pleased to note that we are in continued collaboration with MPS to work to implement these recommendations and work on more robust evaluation overall, examining more recent school years. Thank you.
Director Carr, members of the committee, at this time, we would like to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any committee members who wish to make comments or ask questions? So, Director Leonard, and then Director O'Halloran.
Just a quick one. I know this is, I'm looking at this, near post-COVID results. So I'm not, what are our numbers at this point in time this year? That's really what I'm more concerned about.
Administration.
Director Leonard, Chair Carr, members of the committee, Leighton Cooper, Recreation Coordinator, Milwaukee Public Schools. We have taken steps to look at data for the subsequent years. Currently, as of today, we have 4,373 participants, which marks over a 2,000 student increase from the participants from the pandemic.
Director Leonard. Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. So I just around the goal setting, I had just a couple questions. So when are the goals set? The local goals that need improvement, when do those goals get set?
Director O'Halloran, Chair Carr, members of the committee, Leighton Cooper, Recreation Coordinator. Program goals are established when schools apply for grants. We do annually review these goals to ensure that they're still in alignment. These CLC awards span a 5-year time period. And so as you can imagine, there are times where goals that may have been established year 1, year 2 may need to be changed. And that is part of the important work that we are in the progress of contracting with WCER to engage all of our schools and our site staff in conversations, discussions, and review of their goals to ensure that we have tangible data and that they're still on target with the initial grant applications.
Director O'Halloran.
I think that pretty much answers it, because I just was wondering if we would be able to have like a follow-up discussion at the time when the goals were set, but if there is a process already in place for that review, I guess when just the one question then, when does that annual review take place?
Director O'Halloran, Chair Carr, members of the committee, Leighton Cooper, Recreation Coordinator, Milwaukee Public Schools, the Department of Public Instruction on an annual basis requires a yearly progress report. At that time, it is requested or the ability is provided for programs, schools to adjust grant goals that may need to be adapted for various reasons. And we are currently approaching that time period. It's typically April, May, and it's essential now that we start this work with WCER to prepare our program schools for any changes that may need to be made.
Any follow-up, Director O'Halloran? Alrighty. Are there any others on the committee who wish to make comments, ask questions? I see none. Alrighty. Are there any members of the public who wish to make comments, or is there anyone who registered?
Madam Chair, we had no one registered to speak on this item.
Ready? All right, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on tonight's agenda.
Okay, there being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all and have a great night.